Today's block from the Dear Jane book is going to be I-1, which is also called Ralph and Nelda's Wedding. This block is a pretty simple one. It's just a matter of getting our squares the right sizes. Today I'm going to be using this pretty blue fabric as my focus fabric, and then of course I'm using this muslin as my background or my contrast. When we take a look at this block, it's just a bunch of squares. We've got two larger squares cut out of our foundation fabric. This square measures 2¼ inches square. So for each of these, I need to cut two squares that are 2¾ inch. And I'm cutting those out of this blue foundation fabric. These little squares are measuring 3/4 inch wide, so I need to cut them to be 1¼ inches. I don't actually want to cut all of these individual squares, so I'm going to cut a strip. So what I will do is have a strip of the blue and of my background muslin fabric. And from the strip, I will sew two strips together and then cut them to the size that I need. That's the basic breakdown of making this block. So my first step will be to make my strips for these little squares. If I want to try to do strip piecing, then what I'm going to do is actually make 4 segments that are the muslin, blue muslin. So that way I can cut them apart and get 1, 2, 3, 4 of those segments together. So I will get a muslin, blue muslin, and I will sew those strips together, cut them apart, and then I can work on getting these blue muslin blue for just 2 of those. Does that make sense? Let me start putting those together and I will show you what I mean. Here I have my strips cut out in the muslin blue muslin layout. I already have my stitching line marked on the back of the muslin fabric. So I will stitch these 2 together and these 2 together. With the way this is cut, I will get 3 of these sections together. I will need 1 more, so I have my other strip here, and I will sew the muslin to that one. But let's get this first grouping together, and then I can subcut them. Here are my first strips of the muslin blue muslin sewn together. And I want to explain to you, my strip is shorter than what I'm actually going to need because most of my 30s fabric that I use, I have just scraps of it. If you have enough fabric, you can actually make your strips to be 5 inches long, and that'll be enough to give you the 4 units that you need of the muslin color, muslin, whatever fabrics that you're using. But since I'm dealing with some scraps, I'm just using the length of strips that I have available to me. And I have plenty of strips, so I can make the whole block. I just wanted to make sure that you are aware that if you are cutting from fabric that you have plenty of, you just need 5 inches so that you can create the full units. Now I'm going to subcut these into 1¼ inch strips. I now have my 4 units of the muslin blue muslin cut, and they're ready to stitch together. Next, I will need to work on the blue muslin blue strips. I now have my strips ready to sew together for the units that are blue muslin blue. I only need 2 of these, so each of these strips I've cut to 2.5 inches. That way I'll sew them together and then cut them so that I have 1.25 inch strips. I now have the 2 blue muslin blue units finished. With each of these, I've pressed the seams toward the blue, and that way, when I start to put these together, the seams will nestle up to each other. Now we're going to make 2 of these 9-patch units, making sure that we have the muslin, blue muslin on the outer sections, and then the inner section is the blue muslin blue. Now I'm going to sew these together to make 2 little 9-patch units. My 2 9-patch units are now complete and I've pressed them. They don't lay down super flat yet, but now let's get them in position in the layout for this block. So now let's lay out our square here. We have the 9-patch up in the corner with a blue square down below, then a blue square opposite, and another 9-patch down below. So I will sew these 2 together, then these 2 together, and then sew both halves together. And here is the finished block I-1, also called Ralph and Nelda's Wedding. This block sewed up perfectly, so I didn't have to trim a thing. I hope you enjoyed this walkthrough of this particular Dear Jane block. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them below or send me an email at sewitseemscreations@outlook.com. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. You can also hit the notification bell to be notified each time I upload a video, which is every Monday. This is Veronica Johnson with Sew It Seems, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.